Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Was Fallen Emperor of Outworld. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Shao Kahn made his way to Wave Country at a quick but steady pace, walking along the road to the home he had always desired. His brown cloak covered his entire body, and with some ropes tied around his waist, he pretended to be a simple monk or priest of some order, despite his enormous size. No one would question him on the subject, and if asked where he came from, he could always lie. If things went wrong, he could call himself a shadow priest of Outworld. Nobody knew what Outworld was, and he could easily deceive everyone by claiming it was a faraway kingdom. Which it was. His former kingdom, to be precise. Shao Kahn came to a halt at a hill along the path after what seemed like an eternity to see the great Naruto bridge had been transformed into the great Uchiha Sasuke bridge. And boy, was it different from when Shao Kahn was that naive blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy named Naruto. The overall structure remained the same, but the bridge now had poles in the front, middle, and end, with flags at the top. Each pole was adorned with a different colored flag, each bearing the Uchiha fan symbol, Konoha's leaf symbol, or the Namikaze clan symbol. On either side of the bridge, the middle now had a statue of Uchiha Sasuke in an arrogant superiority pose. As if he were a god worthy of worship and fear, hoping he would bless rather than curse you for being within speaking distance of him. What a haughty jerk. At least my statues were worth admiring, and some were magically enhanced to defend my palace, Shao Kahn thought as he approached the bridge, but was stopped by a group of Konoha shinobi, who were clearly wary of his sudden appearance. Given who they were stopping, they should be. Hold. Who are you? Genma asked, remembering the man with the senbon needle in his mouth from the Chunin exams. I am a simple monk seeking a place to rest from my weary travels. Judging by the way you are so wary of my presence, I have come at a bad time, Shao Kahn replied under his disguise, fighting the urge to kill these Konoha shinobi with his bare hands. No. Not really. It's just that the land you're about to enter has just fallen to fire country, and there has been word of unrest. You may enter, but be mindful of the populace being unfriendly to outsiders and our own forces occupying it. While I don't believe you'll cause any problems, you will be closely watched by our shinobi, and we ask that you not cause trouble while here, Genma explained, Shao Kahn nodding behind his robe. I understand. I will not make waves where they are not wanted, Shao Kahn replied, as some of the shinobi around him laughed. Not make waves. That's a good one considering what the country here used to be called before we took it over, Genma said before slapping Shao Kahn on the arm, wincing, and shaking his hand as if he had just punched steel. Sorry about that. As my size suggests, I am well muscled and capable of defending myself. However, I am also facially disfigured, and will need to keep my hood over my face to avoid upsetting any children who cross my path, Shao Kahn explained as Genma nodded in agreement. I understand, but you might want to avoid the new execution ground we set up because we'll be using it soon, Genma warned, Shao Kahn narrowing his eyes behind his hood. Oh. Why? Who is meeting their end in the cycle of life? Shao Kahn inquired, seeing Genma's grin grow larger. We're just finishing up this goody-goody family that ironically hired out to us years ago to protect the bridge builder named Tazuna, who built this massive thing behind us. The old geezer led the charge against Konoha when we told these demon lovers to change the name of the bridge to what it is now. He and his family wouldn't listen to reason like the rest of the populace, so we had the old man killed 2 years ago. I see. I might go to the execution grounds on the day they're supposed to die, if only to say a small prayer for them. I hope they're not being harmed before the execution? The sight of them harmed or injured before their deaths could make the crowd go Wild with rage, replied Shao Kahn, feeling his own rage rising within him while standing here. No. For the most part, we have them properly restrained and sedated. The boy, Inari, I believe his name is, has become more resistant to the drugs. I think he suspects something and doesn't eat as much of the food laced with the stuff put in it, Genma replied, the robed figure nodding. I'll be leaving then. Thank you for your time, Shao Kahn replied before bowing slightly and walking across the bridge with the shinobi surrounding him, giving his body the space it required. Nice guy, said one Konoha shinobi dressed in a Chunin vest. Yeah, I just wish his body wasn't so massive. Hurt my hand on his arm when I gave him that friendly hit, remarked Genma before wincing as the other leaf shinobi laughed. They had no idea who or what they had just let in. Shao Kahn, on the other hand, was tempted to summon his wrath hammer and smash everything that supported Konoha. From the Sasuke statues to the flagpoles, and finally the leaf shinobi hiding. Or pretend they were hiding. They weren't all hiding in the shadows. Some stood out in public arrogantly, almost as if to say to the native populace, I'm so strong I don't need to hide from the likes of you weaklings. What arrogance. Shao Kahn ignored the Konoha shinobi who was keeping a close eye on him among the people of Wave, who didn't seem happy in the least and were showing signs of depression, just like they did when Gato was around. The only real difference between then and now was that the people were not going hungry, but that could change with the way things were going, with the leaf shinobi possibly taking the majority of the town's food to keep themselves well fed while here. It made sense because they would only get stronger physically while the people of Wave withered and died if they did not submit in time. Stopping at a nearby shop, Shao Kahn discovered it was a weapon shop, and he was surprised that such a shop was still open. Given that Wave was now under Konoha shinobi's control, it stands to reason that such a shop would be closed or confiscated by the enemy for the supplies it held. Can I assist you? An elderly man behind the counter asked. I'm curious about your stores. Wares, Shao Kahn replied, the elderly man smirking. And the fact that it exists while Wave Country is being invaded by the Konoha scum who murdered our hero, the elderly man added. That, too. How is this possible? You don't seem like a shinobi, and your shop has no genjutsu, Shao Kahn said, the elderly man's smirk remaining. It's simple. They let me keep my shop, the elderly man replied. Why? Shao Kahn wondered, wondering if this man was a Fire Country supporter. Because I don't sell my goods to the people here, at least not officially. They agreed to let me keep my shop open on the condition that I don't sell to my fellow countrymen. I sell my goods to anyone loyal to Konoha, Fire Country, or anyone else they allow to enter the country as long as what I make them isn't a weapon to be used against Konoha shinobi, replied the elderly man, while Shao Kahn nodded behind his hood. So long as you don't sell a weapon to a Wave Country citizen or a third party who isn't part of Konoha's military force, they leave you alone, Shao Kahn reasoned, as the man in front of him nodded. That about sums it up. Now, before I try to sell you anything, I need to ask one of the following questions. Are you a citizen of Wave Country? Inquired the old man. No, Shao Kahn replied. So you're a third party in these lands. Are you looking to buy a weapon to possibly use against Konoha shinobi? Inquired the old man. No, Shao Kahn replied. Really? That's a shame. Well, since you're not going to buy weapons, I suggest you look around and see if anything catches your eye, the old storekeeper said as his soon-to-be customer looked around. Now that you mention it, I was actually curious about something about your wares, and I'm hoping your answer is the one I get, Shao Kahn responded while looking over some of the items in stock. What is that? Inquired the elderly gentleman. Do you do custom jobs? Did you make any of these? Shao Kahn asked, and the old man nodded. Yeah, I did a lot of work back in the day. Some of these are pretty old, but in good shape, and I can still make some good items if I know what the customer wants, the elderly shopkeeper responded. Good. I have something I want you to make for me. Do you have anything I could use to draw and show you exactly what I want? Asked Shao Kahn, who nodded and produced a pencil and drawing parchment before the massive giant began drawing what he desired. When the design was handed to him, the old man whistled. That's one scary-looking helmet, the old shopkeeper observed. It's a drawing of the exact same one I had until recently, with a few minor changes. It was damaged in a fight with a stronger opponent. Can you make it? Replied Shao Kahn, with the old shopkeeper looking at it skeptically. Well, I have half of what I need in the back if I use a piece of a samurai helmet I got from Iron Country. Good quality, too. None of that cheap stuff either. This front part along the face area looks like it's bone, which I don't have, nor the kind of bone you'd probably want that has the strength to endure any punishment it might receive in a fight. The only thing I can really do is use heavy compressed steel in its place, which would. All of this is yours. If you make it with the finest materials and get it to me in 3 days or less, Shao Kahn replied, the old man stunned at the sight of such wealth. That's a lot of money. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you're not your average monk or priest, are you? The old shopkeeper asked. I never said I was either of those things, Shao Kahn argued. True. You just wear robes, so I assumed you were, the old man replied. Can you make it in the time I need? Shao Kahn asked, the old man nodding. I have the materials. Some of the best around. When the bridge was first built, business in Wave Country went through the roof, and I got in on the ground floor. I have quality stuff in the back that would suit your needs just fine, the old shopkeeper replied, while Shao Kahn nodded. Here's your payment. Half now, half after completion, Shao Kahn said, taking out half of what was in the bag, if not a little more, before closing it again. I'll close up shop so I can get started on this right away. Where can I find you when it's finished? Inquired the old shopkeeper. Do you know Tizuna and his family? Shao Kahn asked, and the old man nodded. Yeah, great family. Tizuna was an old drinking buddy of mine. Before he died, the elderly man inquired. I'll be staying at their house. If it's still standing, Shao Kahn replied, his face solemn. Tsunami and Inari are detained. They are scheduled for execution in 3 days. I don't mind a heavy-paying customer, but if you are going to live in their home while they suffer, then I will respectfully decline making this for you, and taking your money as well, said the old shopkeeper, who believed in principles and wasn't about to abandon a good old friend and his family so someone could live in their house while he made a strange demonic-looking helmet. You misunderstood. I was a good friend to Tizuna, and I'd like to think I'm still a good friend to Tsunami and Inari, even though it's been many years since we last saw each other when the bridge was finally finished, Shao Kahn responded, as the old shopkeeper narrowed his eyes. You couldn't possibly have been there when the people of Wave Country said goodbye to that Konoha team Tizuna hired on the day the bridge was finished, the elderly man countered. Oh, but I was there. I was there to see Inari cry tears of joy. Rather than tears of sorrow, Shao Kahn replied, his eyes widening, then narrowing again as he tried to pierce the hood's shadows. Only the people of Wave Country and that team of Konoha shinobi know about that. You aren't the silver-haired Cyclops or that pompous-ass Uchiha, and you aren't that pink-haired eyesore of a girl who was said to screech if the Uchiha was insulted, the old shopkeeper charged, while a sliver of hope on who this was began to form in his mind. leaving only one other person, Shao Kahn said before chuckling behind his hooded robes, making the shopkeeper's eyes widen at the unspoken answer. That boy died. Painfully. Konoha said so. They ripped his body to shreds and were said to have burned until there was nothing but ashes left to scatter into the winds, the old man charged, Shao Kahn shaking his head no. Reports of my demise were greatly exaggerated. I did not die. I endured. I survived. I changed with the environment. I walked through fire, death, battles, wars, and chaos itself. I have done so many things in my time away. Things you could not even begin to imagine. But now I have returned, and I intend to exact my revenge on those who betrayed me that day, Shao Kahn replied, the old shopkeeper nodding. I believe you. I hear it in your voice. You are him. Our hero has returned to us, at long last. Exclaimed the old man joyfully. I will save Tsunami and Inari from certain death, but I will need your assistance in doing so by making this helmet. When I fight to free them, this helmet will be an instrument to instill fear and terror in the hearts of my enemies. Before I rip said hearts out with my bare hands, Shao Kahn explained, with the old shopkeeper nodding. I'll get right on it. Heck, I'll do it for free, the old man offered, but the giant man in robes shook his head. While I appreciate the offer, it is only fair that I compensate you for your time, Shao Kahn replied, with the old shopkeeper nodding. Alright, just kill that one Junin guarding the bridge with that needle in his mouth. He was the one who Tazuna. I saw it myself, the old shopkeeper said. The Junin is already dead. He just doesn't know it yet. See you in a few days, old man, Shao Kahn replied before leaving the shop to find the home of the family who treated him as if he were a person. Tazuna's residence. After all these years, the house was exactly as the former Konoha shinobi turned former emperor of Outworld remembered it. He was surprised to see it standing, as the Konoha shinobi who had killed Tazuna and taken his family had left it alone. Shao Kahn theorized that they did this because they weren't ready to destroy it yet, or because they were holding on to the land around the house for some snooty Fire Country noble to buy before tearing it down or renovating it. In any case, it was his temporary home until he could free Tsunami and Inari from their impending execution a few days later. He would need those days to prepare himself, assess his strength level, and determine what he had at his disposal. Shao Kahn knew right away that the answer to his question was his abilities, his speed, strength, and agility despite his overall size. The Wrath Hammer, which he had used numerous times before, was now in his hand, the blood from the bandits killed still somewhat fresh and needed to be cleaned off. Walking into the house, the former emperor of Outworld looked around, noticing signs of a struggle when the Leaf Shinobi arrived. There was blood on the wall and the floor. A shattered glass and a plate were nearby. The presence of kunai and shuriken holes demonstrates that the weapons were thrown here. Shao Kahn would definitely make sure that the Leaf Shinobi who were currently occupying Wave Country suffered greatly. Oh yes. They were going to suffer horribly. 3 days later, execution grounds. A robed figure with his hood on, resembling a large yet humble monk or priest, was walking toward the area where 2 people would die today. A young adolescent boy and his mother. He could hear the growing crowd behind the fence where the executions were to take place. The crowd was erupting in a frenzy. They were yelling, spitting, and cursing the Konoha shinobi behind the fence about how unfair it was all. The robed figure simply stood back, watching from behind the mob, as he noticed a Konoha Junin standing between the 2 people about to be executed. When the robed figure looked at the Junin, he instantly went ramrod straight, and despite the years apart, he knew who this person was. So they turned him into Junin now. It's difficult to imagine. I guess his success in betraying my trust and hating me for years must have merited the fool getting promoted, thought the figure, clenching his fists. Iruka, Amino former Leaf Chunin and Konoha Academy instructor. And what about beside him? Junin and his lover Mitarashi Anko in particular. The woman was dressed in the same garb she always wore. Trench coat, fishnet shirt, and short skirt did little to conceal her feminine figure. Let's get this show on the road, Iruka. We have a schedule to keep, Anko barked, as Iruka nodded and moved to address the enraged crowd, while Leaf Shinobi formed a line of defense in case the fence erected to keep the people back was knocked down by the protesting populace. We are here today, people of what was once Wave Country, to carry out an execution in the name of justice, exclaimed Iruka as the crowd erupted. Justice? More like injustice, exclaimed one member of the audience. These two criminals have been found guilty of crimes against Konoha, its Hokage, and Fire Country as a whole, Iruka said as he noticed the fence trembling. You're the criminals. You invaded our home. You're no better than Gado. A second person objected. For refusing a simple request and loving an evil demon, it has been decided that in order to save these two people's souls, they must be put to death, Iruka concluded, and the crowd became even more raucous. A third yelled, murderers. A fourth yelled, backstabbers. You are the true demons and monsters. Naruto was a hero to the people of Wave, and you had him murdered because he wouldn't be your pawn like my dad Kaiza. Like my grandfather. Yelled Inari, and the crowd erupted. You sealed your fate, boy. Kill him first, commanded Iruka, kneeing Inari in the gut before bringing out his tanto. No. Someone do something, cried Tsunami, who had been silent the entire time, but seeing her only child about to die was too much for her, and it reminded her of when Naruto saved her and Inari. But Naruto had vanished. Nobody could ever save them again. Before the masked Anbu could react, a spear of green energy flew through the fence, slamming into the Konoha shinobi's chest and sending him flying several feet before stopping dead. At that point, everyone's protests, yells, and orders fell silent in the face of what they had just witnessed. Following the trajectory of the projectile, everyone's attention was drawn to the large, robed, and hooded figure with his arm outstretched as if he had thrown a spear or javelin. I think it's time someone put you Konoha shinobi in your place. Somewhere beneath the soil and dirt seems appropriate, remarked the robed figure as he walked forward, and the mob of people did not object. You have some balls to do that, and I'm going to enjoy cutting them off before killing you alongside our victims, Anko said, grin on his face and kunai in hand. The robed figure remained silent. Some people wondered if the man in the robes had lost his nerve after just standing in front of the fence for a moment. A pair of large hands from within the robes grabbed the fence and tore it apart like tissue paper, putting an end to that train of thought. As he passed through, the figure was surrounded on all sides by Konoha shinobi wielding swords and kunai ready for battle. Would you mind telling us your name before you die here today? Iruka asked, as the figure let out a cruel laugh that echoed throughout the area. Telling you my name wouldn't matter because after today, almost none of you here will be alive long enough to speak it, let alone tell your pathetic Hokage about my existence, said the figure as Leaf Shinobi bristled and tensed. Kill him, Anko commanded, the Konoha shinobi surrounding her and moving quickly to kill the fool who had insulted the Gondam Hokage. No one expected the figure to move so quickly, given his size and the rough outline of a monk or priest in heavy robes. They misjudged him, and it cost them dearly as he clotheslined one shinobi, spun on his heel, dodging a tanto to the back before kneeing another, and backhanded the second attacker who tried to stab him with the sword. Seeing an opportunity, Anko used her many hidden shadow snake hands to try to capture the cloaked figure. But she was taken aback when the figure swerved around the snakes before grabbing them all with his cloaked arm and crushing them with his clearly superior strength. Sealed bomb square release, exclaimed Iruka, having used this time to plan his attack and trap the enemy within this explosive prison before killing him. Looks like we won, Anko said confidently, a smirk on her face. And how do you figure that? The robed figure inquired. This is a barrier seal of sorts. A deadly one. See Iruka over there? One hand sign from him, and your barrier becomes a bomb. One that will destroy you. If you try to move, you get the same result, and your remains go flying, Anko explained as the figure looked around to see the Konoha shinobi he knocked down were starting to get up, but were badly injured from each hit. Is this supposed to mean something? Your little attempt to scare me into surrendering? To beg for mercy? Inquired the unafraid figure, as Anko's smirk faded over the fact that this guy wasn't begging for mercy. Considering the alternative as being dead and in pieces, Anko said as she approached him, but she came to a halt when the figure let out a cruel chuckle. You and that fool Iruka underestimate me, just like Konoha shinobi did when I was a kid, the figure remarked before surprising everyone and walking toward Anko. Before the seals went off and the explosion covered the area with enough force to send Konoha shinobi and some of Wave Country's populace flying back. When the smoke cleared, everyone noticed that the figure was standing unharmed. His robes were charred, burned, tattered, and ready to fall off in the face of a strong wind. He shouldn't be standing. That should have killed him, exclaimed Iruka as the figure emerged from the smoke, slowly grabbing the tattered, destroyed robes on his body and ripping them off. Honestly, I expected more from you, Iruka. Apparently, your skills aren't worthy of the promotion to Junin as I first thought, the figure mocked before summoning a large sledgehammer from nowhere. How did he summon a weapon? One of the injured Anbu wondered as he saw it appear seemingly out of nowhere. And why do you talk to me as if I've met you before? I don't know you, Iruka said as he and Anko were approached by a massive figure of seemingly solid muscle. You once gave me something under the false pretense of friendship, and before that, you hated me for something that another did, and who I'd been connected to since the day I was born. Ring any bells now? Mused the figure as Iruka narrowed his eyes, but Anko's was clearly piecing things together much faster than him, and it was clear she'd figure it out soon. I've never hated anyone from Konoha in my life, not even Mizuki when he betrayed the village, Iruka said as the figure frowned at him behind the mask, crimson red eyes glowed angrily. Look into my eyes, Iruka. Don't they have a familiar look to them? The ones you saw as a child. The ones you saw while your parents were being murdered that night. Exclaimed the figure, smiling again as Iruka's eyes widened in surprise before it gradually dawned on the man. No. It's impossible. It's impossible. Iruka insisted, his breathing heavy with shock and horror all over his face. What? What is it, Iruka? Anko demanded as she looked between them with a hint of confusion. You still don't recognize me? And here I thought the crazy snake bitch would have figured it out by now before Iruka. Clearly, the only thing you're good for is spreading your legs for Iruka. Just like Mizuki said. Right before I killed him with my bare hands, mocked the figure as Anko and Iruka looked stunned. You killed Mizuki? When? Iruka demanded angrily, the figure smirking at him. A few days ago, not far from Wave Country, he was assisting a group of bandits in raiding a caravan of its riches and said quite a few choice words about you too. Before I killed him, the figure replied, and it was clear Iruka wasn't pleased. You monster. You demon. I should have just let Mizuki kill you in the forest when he had the chance back then. Raged Iruka as he drew his weapon. And risk the real demon escaping from my body? As much as you despised me for being a living prison, Iruka. We both know you despised the idea of Kyuubi escaping even more, replied the figure, Iruka gritting his teeth and Anko's eyes widening in shock before she assumed a more lethal fighting stance. Uzumaki Naruto, you are to be executed for abandoning your duties to Konoha and endangering its stability. Anko ordered, as the people behind the giant man stared at him, stunned that their hero had returned. The crowd behind him erupted almost instantly, yelling to protect their hero, to quickly overpower the Konoha shinobi with their superior numbers. Stay where you are. This is my fight and mine alone, commanded the giant man firmly, leaving the people of Wave stunned. Why? We want to help you. To repay you for everything you've done, exclaimed one. You deserve our assistance, said another. We can help you take down these pieces of Konoha trash together, exclaimed a third as the crowd became more raucous. Do as I say. If anyone is going to take down these pieces of Konoha trash, it will be me, said the Colossus before walking forward. Not too bright, Gaki. You may have grown in size and muscle, but you are still the same klutzy dim-witted Uzumaki Naruto who didn't know a pencil from a kunai when you were a kid, Anko mocked as the figure in front of her began to generate a lot of power. Then you need your eyes checked. I am no longer Uzumaki Naruto. Konoha was able to successfully kill him years ago through the power of their so-called will of fire, that it has embraced since its founding. I am what he became from the ashes of that fire. You may call me Shao Kahn, replied Shao Kahn before he moved in a blur of speed and was hit by a shoulder tackle that sent her into one of the Anko, exclaimed Iruka, but Shao Kahn was there in a flash, backhanded the former Chunin Academy instructor with his free hand-turned fist. Down already? From one hit? Don't make me laugh, Iruka. Clearly you are no more a Junin-level shinobi than you were a Chunin-level shinobi all those years ago if all your strength fails you now, and only after one hit no less, mocked Shao Kahn as he walked toward him, but was stopped by the group of Konoha shinobi from before, as well as what appeared to be additional reinforcements. We heard the explosion and knew it wasn't standard execution ground policy, Genma and his team replied, as they saw Shao Kahn turn to face him with an evil grin. Prepare to die, Konoha shinobi, because this day will be your last, exclaimed Shao Kahn, his power swirling around him like a vortex, making his enemies nervous. Who is he? Genma inquired of Iruka, who was attempting to stand. It's the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. It's Uzumaki Naruto, exclaimed Iruka, who was accompanied by the shinobi who had arrived as reinforcements and looked shocked before preparing for battle. All your souls are now mine, exclaimed Shao Kahn before charging forward and unleashing his wrath on the shinobi in front of him, who were unprepared for the battle they had just entered. When she saw her comrades being slaughtered, Anko summoned a large snake, one the size of a horse, and ordered it to charge Shao Kahn. She hoped it would kill him or at the very least weaken the monster with its lethal poison. Shao Kahn noticed the snake out of the corner of his eye and swung his wrath hammer horizontally into the snake's side of the face. The end result was the snake's head exploding and killing him in a violent display of gore that covered everyone around him. The Konoha shinobi around him tried to gang up on him, but Shao Kahn hit one with a flying knee, smashed another's skull in half with the wrath hammer, stabbed another in the eye with the bottom of the pointed hilt of said wrath hammer, and killed two shinobi for the price of one with a well-timed fireball of his own. Shao Kahn turned around to see Genma with his senbon needle out, ready to strike a spot in his target's neck that, if hit, would paralyze him. With his free hand, The former emperor of Outworld grabbed Genma by the throat and violently snapped the man's neck before tossing him away like yesterday's trash. Die, 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 exclaimed Iruka as he sneaked to the top of the wooden pole that held prisoners for execution and jumped down on Shao Kahn's back before repeatedly stabbing him in the chest area with a kunai while holding on for dear life. It might have worked if it hadn't been for the energy shield that stopped each stabbing long enough for Shao Kahn to reach back, grab Iruka, slam him into the ground, and place his large sandaled foot on the man's torso. The foot's impact broke a few ribs, causing the scarred Junin to scream in agony, which worsened when Shao Kahn applied more pressure to it. Iruka! Exclaimed Anko as she moved to make a few hand signs for a jutsu, but was stopped by a spear of light striking the side of her torso too quickly for the special Junin to dodge while keeping her pinned to the wooden pole. You bastard! Exclaimed Iruka as he reached for the kunai he had dropped when his opponent grabbed him and slammed his body into the ground. And what if I am? What does that make my so-called parents? My so-called sister? Not that I care because they will soon be dead just like you are about to be real soon, Shao Kahn replied before stomping the man's chest in. No. Don't kill him. I beg you. Pleaded Anko as Shao Kahn locked his gaze on her before a loud crunch echoed throughout the execution grounds. Amino Iruka was no longer alive. His face was filled with pain and horror at having his life end so violently. The sound that followed was Mitarashi Anko's tears of sadness and sorrow at losing the man she loved with all her heart. Shao Kahn followed her, but on the way, he freed Tsunami and Inari from the ropes that bound them to the poles. Thank you, thank you, thank you, exclaimed Tsunami as she embraced Shao Kahn and Inari. I knew you were alive, big brother, and I knew you wouldn't let Konoha win. Exclaimed Inari, and Shao Kahn laughed. We have a lot to talk about in the near future. Go home. I'll be there soon. Right after I deal with this one here, Shao Kahn said as he walked toward Anko, pointing his wrath hammer at her. Tsunami, Inari, and the people of Wave Country left knowing that their hero's decision on this matter was final. Kill me, Anko said quietly as Shao Kahn stood directly in front of her. Do you want me to repeat that? Shao Kahn asked, amused. I said kill me. Kill me now. Kill me right fucking now. Demanded Anko, his eyes welling up with tears. Why? Because you want me to kill you? Because you want to take the easy way out? Or because you want to join your beloved Iruka in hell? Shao Kahn inquired, the woman staring at him with tears streaming down her cheeks. It's because I refuse to be anything else while you're still alive. Angrily exclaimed Anko, while Shao Kahn laughed. You put up a brave front, but I can see into your soul. You are afraid. Deathly afraid. Of me. Of what I can do. To Konoha. To Fire Country. But most importantly. To you. Replied Shao Kahn, as he grabbed her by the wound and heard her scream in pain. What? Exclaimed Anko as he was lifted off the ground and slammed into the pole with only one arm, his helmet covering his face directly in front of her. You were right to be afraid of me. Very afraid. I am out for vengeance against everyone who betrayed me, including you, Iruka, the rookies, their Junin senseis, my parents, my godparents, the Sandame, and everyone else who hurt me all those years ago, Shao Kahn replied as he dug his hand into Anko's torso. I was only following orders. Anko protested before crying out in agony. A lie and an excuse to justify your reason. Not that it matters. I have lived long enough under the heel of those who give and follow orders. No more. You and Ibiki did quite a number on me when I was being questioned. I told you the truth and you wouldn't let up. I can still remember your laughter in the darkness of my prison cell as you cut into my flesh. You weren't doing it to get the real truth from me. I was tired. All right? I admit it. I was tired of the hatred. Of the pain. I was offered a chance, and I took it. Yandaime-sama, Sandaime-sama, Jiraiya-sama, and Tsunade-sama came to me before your assigned interrogation with the offer to change public support in my favor. The Yandaime explained he could vouch for me, saying that I was not under Orochimaru. Only to be pulled toward him for a split second before being slammed into the wooden pole with enough force to break it slightly where she hit it. Don't get so high and mighty with me. You are nothing more than a hypocrite. If the roles were reversed, Uzumaki Naruto would not have left you to die alone. He would have fought tooth and nail to ensure your happiness. Unlike you, he kept his principles to the end, and never betrayed anyone for anything. No matter the offer. Exclaimed Shao Kahn in a furious tone as blood poured from Anko's mouth. You speak as if Uzumaki Naruto is dead, but we both know you're Uzumaki Naruto, Anko countered, Shao Kahn smiling at her. No, Uzumaki Naruto died shortly after his escape and was reborn through the powers of dark magic and sorcery. You are correct in that the soul is alive, but the body is dead, and I am now Shao Kahn. Do not confuse the two of us just because we are in one body, Shao Kahn explained as Anko bit back the urge to cry out in pain. If you say so, and you call me a hypocrite, Anko said, clearly not believing him. Perhaps I am, but it is minor in comparison to you and that cesspool you call a shinobi village. I'm looking forward to crushing everyone in Konoha under my power when the time comes, and you are going to help me, Shao Kahn remarked, Anko looking at him. After what you just did? I'd rather die. Protested Anko as he applied more pressure to the wound and nearly blacked out. That's an option I'm more than willing to pursue, wench. However, given your talents as a shinobi, I think you'd be better suited as one of my many new subordinates. Maybe I'll even make you my bodyguard or concubine if I wish, Shao Kahn replied, while Anko growled angrily. As if I'd ever have sex with you. I won't. I'd rather be an old hag with saggy tits. Exclaimed Anko as she was stripped of her trench coat, her fishnet shirt ripped off, and pressed up against the wooden pole before she could react. I told you and the others before they died that your soul was mine, and everything you are now belongs to me, Shao Kahn declared as he held her in place and placed a hand on the infamous curse seal, which he knew from his memories of the thing had always been the bane of her existence, for the woman. Ignoring Anko's attempts to fight him off from her position, Shao Kahn began to analyze the curse seal with his power and attacked it in a matter of moments. Such a big man. Having to rape an injured woman to feel big. I bet you're tiny underneath that loincloth. Your path was all Anko could say mockingly as she screamed in pain as a stabbing sensation attacked the curse seal on her neck. As she felt something being pulled out of her and then something entering in its place, the poor woman began to spasm. Anko had no idea what had entered, but she was afraid that whatever her old sensei had put into the curse seal to bind her to him, Shao Kahn had replaced it with something worse. She didn't want what he'd done, but her strength had left her body, and she couldn't fight him off. His grip on her shoulder was like a vice, and his other hand on her hip kept any spasms she had under control. Funny thing I learned about the curse seal on your neck. It's designed to hold a piece of someone's soul. This is done in combination with elements I've never seen before of a biological nature to draw on the energies of nature itself to sustain it. Fortunately for me, the power to drain a soul, if only a fragment of it, has always been a skill I was a natural at when reborn in Outworld. You You put a piece of yourself into the curse seal, Anko concluded after regaining her bearings and staring up at him in horror. Yes. Just as that curse seal bound you to Orochimaru, so does mine, though the design is clearly different, Shao Kahn replied before picking up a kunai nearby and lightly tossing it to Anko so she could use it as a mirror to see the seal through the metal. Anko felt a surge of newfound strength at the prospect of attacking Shao Kahn, and she seized it with a ferocity she had no idea was possible for someone so depleted of energy. Perhaps it was her rage, the pain of losing Iruka, or the fact that she no longer cared about dying. Anko's body jolted like it had been struck by lightning as she was about to plunge the kunai into his chest, where the heart was located, and the woman cried out in pain before slumping to the ground. What? What was that? Why couldn't I kill you? Panted Anko, looking up at the smirking giant. Because my seal won't let you, Anko. Your former sensei Orochimaru may have found amusement in entertaining himself with the idea of you getting close enough to kill him, but I do not share his views on the matter. This is your ultimate punishment for betraying me and yourself all those years ago, Anko. You will obey me. You will follow my every command I give whether you like it or not. And if I decide to kill myself? Anko posed before feeling more pain run through her body. You can try, Anko, but the seal won't let you do anything like that, and over time. The seal will make you see things the way they were meant to be seen, my way. Said Shao Kahn as Anko struggled to get up and stand. And what? What does my master command of me? Anko inquired as she noticed his grin widen. Simple. You know where every Konoha shinobi in Wave Country is currently located throughout the land. Even now, some of them are going to investigate what happened here when those sent to investigate what happened in this area fail to report in soon. You will report that a riot was put down after a successful execution of Tsunami in Inari occurred, commanded Shao Kahn while Anko gritted her teeth, but slowly nodded, and found a radio C. She didn't dare to look at Iruka's body for fear of bursting into tears again. Teams 3 and 7 report. Anko? Iruka? What's going on over there? We heard and felt a commotion at the execution grounds, a voice over the speaker Anko placed in her ear said. This is Anko. We had a small riot after we executed the 2 prisoners, and we put down the rioters. All Konoha shinobi can stand down, Anko said into her headset. Copy that, Anko, and have all teams stand down and return to their posts, said the voice on the other end. I'm going to be off duty for a little while, Kakashi. Iruka. Iruka and I need to get all the blood off of our clothes, Anko explained as he noticed Shao Kahn's crimson eyes narrow when the mention of the Cyclops was mentioned. Understood, Anko. Try not to have too much fun or let your guard down while off duty, because we might need you to later if things get crazy, Kakashi replied before Anko turned off the radio after hearing the man's perverted giggle. Baka. Anko murmured before being turned around by Shao Kahn and forced to look him in those crimson eyes and feel his hand on her waist before his powers healed the injury there. Now. Tell me about the overall situation in Wave Country, from troop positions to exact numbers and whether the Wave Daimyo is alive or dead. Leave nothing out or you will regret it, Shao Kahn commanded, with Anko reluctantly nodding and telling him everything. Sometime later Wave Daimyo's castle. Iruka, Anko, Genma, and their teams haven't reported in yet? Kakashi inquired, with Yamato nodding in agreement. Nor the team assigned to Anko and Iruka during the execution of the 2 criminals who aided the demon, Yamato added, with Kakashi making a noise that indicated he was thinking. Something has happened to them. The people of Wave have taken down our teams while they were caught off guard, Kakashi concluded, with Yamato frowning. But how? It shouldn't be possible for civilians to take down highly skilled shinobi, Yamato said, accompanied by a shrug from Kakashi. Knowing Anko's ways, the people of Wave probably caught her and Iruka rutting in a cheap motel. As for Genma and his team, we'll just have to find out, Kakashi replied casually, as he read his Icha Icha Paradise book while sitting in the daimyo's chair, and glanced at the concerned Mokuton user. How? Yamato asked, as Kakashi shrugged. However we can. They took down our people, so we have to repay the favor. Get in touch with our teams around town. Have them round up a few random people for execution. And don't stop with just men because they'll put on a brave face. Get some of the women and children as well, ordered Kakashi, as he was told to bring this country under the command of Fire Country, and if it meant killing a chunk of the populace, then so be it. Furthermore, Fire Country intended to relocate some of its population here and would be looking for housing. What better way to accomplish this than to murder a few people in Wave and seize their homes as spoils of war to later redistribute to wealthy influential families? I just did Kakashi-senpai, and I've lost contact with 5 of the 8 teams that are still out there, Yamato replied, as Kakashi frowned and put his book away. And the 3 remaining teams? Kakashi asked, with Yamato frowning even more. They're all here inside the castle, Yamato replied before an explosion shook the castle. We're under attack. Attention all Konoha shinobi, we're under attack. Prepare to repel the enemy, commanded Kakashi before more explosions shook the castle and cries of pain were heard. Kakashi. We are being attacked by an unknown foe, and Anko is with him. She has betrayed us. She has yelled one shinobi into his headset. Anko? Betraying us? But that's not possible, exclaimed Yamato, as battle, pain, and death cries grew louder. Another blast shook the castle. We'll find out soon enough, Kakashi said, as he saw the large doors leading into their room being smashed against something powerful based on how the doors jolted and the sound of the thing hitting them. The 2 Konoha shinobi, along with the Anbu, stood guard with their weapons drawn as the doors to the throne room began to crack, with another hit causing a splinter and another causing them to break. When the broken doors flew open, Kakashi, Yamato, and the other Anbu were startled to see a strange man walk into the room. He was dressed like a warlord, with a strange demonic samurai helmet covering the upper part of his face and head and a massive sledgehammer in his hand. Mitarashi Anko stood beside him, wearing her usual trench coat and short blood-stained skirt. Her fishnet shirt was missing, though everyone knew it did little to conceal the woman's impressive bust, which she teased men with while walking around Konoha. Identify yourself, commanded Kakashi, focusing on the figure and temporarily ignoring Anko. I am Shao Kahn, the Conqueror. And you Hitaki Kakashi will bow to me before the end, exclaimed Shao Kahn, raising an eyebrow while remaining calm, while the Anbu around him laughed. We'll see, Kakashi replied before revealing his Sharingan and preparing to fight. Fight! Yelled Shao Kahn, engaging the Anbu and Kakashi while Anko battled Yamato. Why are you doing this, Anko? You are a loyal Konoha shinobi. Why betray us after the Yondaime cleared you of being a potential traitor? Yamato demanded, attempting to repel her with his sword while she used a kunai. You think I have a choice? The bastard over there reshaped my curse seal to practically make me his slave, exclaimed Anko, who was forced to fight Yamato. What? How? Orochimaru-sama said your curse seal was untouchable because it was a prototype and faulty in its use, Yamato said, Anko gritting her teeth. I don't know, Anko exclaimed angrily while still attempting to kill him. Mokaton. Mokasatsu Shibari no Jutsu! Exclaimed Yamato, leaping back and shooting multiple branches from his hands to bind Anko. Shao Kahn, on the other hand, shoulder-tackled one Konoha Anbu right into a stone pillar, leaving a mashed-up body to slump down dead. Two Anbu leapt into the air, Tanto in hand, and attempted to stab him from above. The demonic warlord, on the other hand, threw his wrath hammer into the air, striking one of them in the chest with enough force to cave in his ribs, while the second Anbu missed his strike. Shao Kahn grabbed the second Anbu by the back of his neck, pulled him back, and broke his spine by ramming a knee right into it with enough force that the man would never be able to walk again. It didn't matter because Shao Kahn crushed his head like a grape and threw away his body. Rikiri! Exclaimed Kakashi as he charged forward, his lightning jutsu striking his intended target. Only to discover that a chakra shield was preventing his Rikiri from killing Shao Kahn, and he received an uppercut to the face after his extended arm was knocked away. "Where is your Yondaime Hokage when you need him, Kakashi?" Chuckled Shao Kahn as he approached the stunned man. "He is more powerful than Tsunade-sama." "What exactly is he?" Kakashi shook his head, but Shao Kahn quickly brought him to his feet and held his Junin vest. "Your pathetic Sharingan eye no longer shackles someone like me," Shao Kahn replied before slamming his fist into Kakashi several times and throwing him right into a stone pillar holding the roof up. Kakashi's body bounced off the pillar before collapsing, his Sharingan eye slightly blocked by the swell around it, and he was bleeding profusely from several cuts caused by the spiked wrist bracers. "Kakashi-senpai!" exclaimed Yamato, wondering how he could assist Kakashi while keeping Anko under control. "Does someone like him? What exactly does he mean by that?" Kakashi thought as he struggled to get up. "You, the Yondaime, his family, Senju Tsunade, and the other higher-ups within Konoha masquerade yourselves as dragons, believing you have a right to control the world as the elder gods control the heavens, but in the end, you are all mere toothless worms," Shao Kahn mocked before grabbing a stunned Kakashi by the back of his vest and throwing him against another pillar before being kicked hard into it with enough force to leave. "You have no right to speak like that about Minato-sensei, or anyone from Konoha," exclaimed Kakashi as he fell forward onto the ground. "Oh, but I do, Hitaki Kakashi, after all, the Yondaime Hokage is my father," Shao Kahn countered, while Kakashi and Yamato both looked up in horror. "Father? But how? Yondaime only Sama's child is Naruto," countered Yamato, with Shao Kahn laughing. "How quickly the people of Konoha forget." "But you didn't forget, Kakashi? The other less loved child, who was your student, whom you were assigned to watch, neglect, and ensure the boy never reached his full potential for fear of what he would do upon learning the truth behind his life's purpose. You know the life I'm talking about, right, Hitaki? The one where the boy struggles all day, every day, without end, and when the boy finally succeeds in the one." "And Naruto," Kakashi murmured, remembering the boy who made it before being sucked into that portal's promise of vengeance aimed at the leaf. Following that, Minato, Jiraiya, and Kushina all attempted to study the seal design on the ground that had been left behind in the hopes of understanding it and thus locating Naruto. However, all attempts were futile for years because the design was unreadable and too scorched to be deciphered by anyone. Jiraiya had even attempted to reverse summon the boy because he was still bound by the Toad contract, but it had failed, and what was worse, the Elder Toad had mentioned the original prophecy changing. Not just changing, but being completely destroyed and rewoven into something entirely different. Jiraiya described it as if someone took a sword to a tapestry depicting the future before the pieces reformed into a new prophecy. As it replayed in Kakashi's mind, he realized what it was referring to. Gods and kings were terrified of his power. His heart was filled with rage and the pain of the past. He will fight anyone who opposes him. All will fall at his feet in the name of justice and vengeance. All we know is that the betrayed one will return to Conqueror and turn the shinobi world we know into shadow. It's a good thing you remembered my old name after all these years, Kakashi. I'd hate to think that someone like yourself forgot about your sensei's discarded son. Now take it with you to the Netherrealm, knowing your life and this world as you know it is going to end soon. Very soon, Shao Kahn replied, raising his wrath hammer to crush the man in front of him and deal another blow to Konoha. Damn you. I need to save Kakashi-senpai, Yamato thought as he threw Anko against a wall and turned his jutsu toward Kakashi in order to save him before the killing blow was delivered. Thank you, Yamato. We need to get out of here and to Konoha right away. They need to be warned, Kakashi replied as Yamato held onto him and they began to flee the castle. Don't worry, Kakashi-senpai, Yamato said as he rushed to the bridge with Kakashi, trying to escape using speed to their advantage despite one being riddled with internal injuries. Light spear! Exclaimed Shao Kahn as he pierced Yamato's chest and knocked the two-leaf shinobi off the bridge. Yamato! Exclaimed Kakashi as he noticed Yamato attempting to stand, but the spear-shaped chakra weapon had struck the man with lethal precision, and the Mokuton user soon slumped down dead. One less worm to worry about crushing. I remember him from my childhood, and looking back, I realize he used his wood powers to keep Kyubis from being unleashed on the fools who hurt me growing up. I should have made him suffer more for his past actions, Shao Kahn remarked as Kakashi struggled to stand, but the former emperor punched him in the face, sending the Junin flying to the side of the bridge into the concrete siding while denting. Naruto, wait. We can work this out. I know Konoha has wronged you for what the Kyuubi did. That I wronged you. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can start anew. All of us. You, me, the Sandaime, your godparents, your parents, and your sister can all start over. A fresh start. They would be proud to have you back in Konoha and as. And why would I want to be a member of that so-called family? They never wanted me, Kakashi. Even after I was born, they never wanted a son. It didn't matter to them if I had the Kyuubi sealed in me or not. They would have cast me out simply for being male and for their own selfish reasons. In a way, I should thank them for making me the Kyuubi Jinchuriki rather than my sister. That's not true, Kakashi protested, grunting at the pain he was in. You knew what they had planned for me after I became the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. You knew they were going to leave me whether I was or not. At least with the fox's power, I was able to heal from my wounds, and enhancing my already fast regenerative abilities given to me by my Uzumaki bloodline as a result. Tell me, Kakashi, if my sister had been made a Jinchuriki, and I was cast aside to suffer the... I'm sorry, Naruto, but you know Minato orders senseis are absolute, and I must obey him because he knows what he's doing. According to Jiraiya, either he or Naruto are to be considered the child of prophecy that was foretold long ago, and add to that he was the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha and single-handedly ended the Third Shinobi War with Iwa. One does not. Well, I'm questioning him, and I'll have you know, he is not the foretold child of prophecy, nor is Naruto. I am. Declared Shao Kahn, with Kakashi now glaring at him in anger. Who says that? Just because you say it doesn't make it true. You are a dead last, no talent shinobi who was given bare minimum training and learning in order to be a subservient weapon for a cause beyond his comprehension. You are a weapon. A tool. Tools do not question their masters. Countered Kakashi before he cried out in pain when Shao Kahn brought his wrath hammer down on his right kneecap. The elder gods say otherwise, Shao Kahn said, clutching Kakashi's broken leg. But you don't have to take my word for it. Go talk to my so-called father about it. He knows what I just told you is true. I'm not sure how you came to that conclusion, but you must be even stupider than when you escaped Konoha. Do you expect me to believe that I can just wobble out of here to warn everyone without being killed by you with my back turned? I thought you wanted to kill me and everyone else in Konoha? For your revenge? Questioned Kakashi, with Shao Kahn laughing and leaning down to stare the Junin in the eyes. Prior to grabbing half of it. They already know I've returned Kakashi, or at the very least, the higher-ups know. After all, I did rip the other half of Kyuubi out of my father and then send him back to Konoha as weak as a newborn infant, Shao Kahn said, pressing his thumb against Kakashi's eye while holding the Sharingan. Oh no. Our advantage over Naruto has vanished. And with Minato-sensei losing the other half of the Kyuubi. Reflected Kakashi, Shao Kahn's smile widening as if he could read the Junin's mind. Oh yes, Kakashi. Any advantage Konoha had with my father fighting me is gone. I took back from him what didn't belong to my father from the start, and I'm going to take what doesn't belong to you as well, Shao Kahn said as he moved his large hand to painfully remove the Sharingan eye of one Hatake Kakashi, the man crying out in protest and thrashing wildly. No. Don't. This eye came from a dear friend. It's all I have left of him. Pleaded Kakashi as he thrashed, punched, and kicked Shao Kahn's massive body in vain. Your time as Sharingan Kakashi is over. You are now simply Hatake Kakashi, Shao Kahn replied before showing the eye to the Junin before crushing it in his hands and letting the optic juice from the organ leak out of his fist for Kakashi to see with his one remaining eye. No. Obito. Rin. Sasuke, Kakashi stuttered. Wobble back to Konoha like the wounded dog you are, Kakashi. Go back to Konoha and tell them that the demon they despised for years has returned to this realm. Tell them I am back to keep my promise and there is not a soul in Konoha that can stand in my way. Commanded Shao Kahn as he picked up Kakashi and threw him like a javelin high into the air until he landed on the main land where the... This is terrible. The prophecy is being fulfilled. Kakashi thought as he found himself unable to stand, let alone walk, because the impact on the ground had broken his other leg, and realized he had to crawl back to Konoha. Like a stricken dog. One thing, Hatake. Tell them that this bridge is no longer the great Uchiha Sasuke bridge. It is the great Naruto bridge once more. Yelled Shao Kahn before leaping into the air and smashing one of the statues of Uchiha Sasuke with the Wrath Hammer on one side before doing it again on the other. When he returned to land, within the borders of Wave Country, the people of the island nation gathered to cheer him on, renaming Shao Kahn their hero. The former emperor of Outworld was perplexed by this, as he had always ruled through fear and intimidation, killing his enemies with his power. And now here he was, loved by everyone around him, with no one scared of his appearance. They didn't care if he was covered in blood from the bodies of the countless Konoha shinobi he had killed on his way to the castle. All they cared about him was that he was back with them. That he had returned and saved them all from enemy invaders once more. It was, to put it mildly, strange. You seem surprised, Naruto-kun, that people would embrace you after all this time, Tsunami said as she and Inari approached him, the latter hugging the giant man. I'm not used to such praise. Contrary to what people here believe, I've been more of a villain than hero. If you had only seen what I'd done since my escape from Konoha. If these people knew the truth behind how I am now, they would hate me, Shao Kahn replied, as he wondered why such a feeling of being hated by the people here hurt him so much when it never bothered him before, and wondered if the elder gods Or maybe it was part of his awakening. It doesn't matter to us because you will always be Naruto-kun in our eyes, our hero who freed us from one tyrant and protected us from an army sent by another. Whether you accept it or not is up to you, Tsunami declared, trying to hide the blush on her face. You have to show me how you did all those cool things, brother. Could you teach me? Asked Inari, hoping he would because his fight with the shinobi who had entered his family's home to take them away had ended badly and he wanted to get stronger. My abilities are unique, Inari. I believe you should concentrate your efforts on archery. I seem to recall you being a great crossbow shooter. But, if you fight someone using close-range combat, I think I can help teach you a bit about fighting, Shao Kahn replied, not wanting to teach Inari such power for fear of corrupting him or turning him into another Shang Tsung. Shao Kahn wasn't about to turn the boy into the man's replacement for one sorcerer like him. Okay. I figured as much with your summoning of your weapon and moving so quickly for a guy your size, said Inari as Shao Kahn nodded and noticed Tsunami blushing with lust in her eyes as she admired his body. And what a man he is. All that muscle and power. It makes a woman wonder just how much muscle he's really got under there, Tsunami thought, shaking her head at the perverted thoughts that popped into her head. Just curious, how will your country be run? I was told your wave daimyo was killed some time ago, Shao Kahn said, his face saddened by the news. I'm afraid it's true. The wave daimyo, or the fire daimyo for that matter, would not agree to Konoha's terms. They killed him when they invaded to keep us in line, so we needed a form of government set up under their control to keep us in line, Tsunami replied, as she noticed Inari's face scrunch up in thought before they went wide at an idea. Wait. Big Brother here has the potential to be the daimyo, declared Inari, while Shao Kahn looked at him with some surprise, though not too much, because he did consider the idea of taking the throne of only to be politically protected in certain areas that such a station provides. What a brilliant idea, Inari! Exclaimed Tsunami, as the people around them all agreed and clearly supported the idea, their voices calling out for Shao Kahn to lead them. That's fantastic. Wave Country will be ruled by me. However, I need to make something clear to you right now about my identity. I used to be known as Uzumaki Naruto at one point in my life. Your champion. I am your savior. But during my absence, I have done horrible things to survive where I have been, and as a result, I have returned to you in this state. One of the changes I had to make was to give up my old name in exchange for a new one for the life I had lived before returning to this realm. As a result, from now on, I prefer to be addressed as Shao Kahn rather than Uzumaki Naruto. Explained Shao Kahn, with the people stunned, but nodding in understanding, and seeing no reason to question their new ruler. Shao Kahn, all hail. Wave Country's daimyo, yelled Inari, as the crowd began to cheer and chant his name. Shao Kahn, on the other hand, felt a shift within him, not so much in how he felt toward his enemies, but in how he felt toward the people he now ruled, and wished to protect them from harm. Rather than rule through oppression, as he had done for years after the fall of the Dragon King millennia ago, the former emperor felt the need to rule these people fairly, and make sure his new subjects were taken care of while. Perhaps Uzumaki Naruto was more awake than he gave himself credit for. In any case, the giant of a man needed to assess the damage done to Wave Country while it was occupied by Konoha shinobi, and once that was completed, he would seek out his old friends in high places throughout the elemental countries to gather allies in the coming war. If it hadn't already happened.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.